All right, we are going to get started. And again, this is about how to make the Creator brand partnership really work. And I want to start off with a little bit of the sort of antithesis of this with Sarah Clarke. Sarah, you don't work with brands anymore. Why not? Flip that switch to the top.
There we go.
All right.
So I basically turned down almost every brand deal now, and that's because in my business I've managed to create a range of products for myself, and so we tried to still work with brands for a little while in negotiating different videos, but overall I found the effort and the sacrifice I had to make in videos to please those brands didn't end up being worth it for me, and it ended up being much more worthwhile just to promote my own stuff. And having my own products has given me enough I guess sustainability in my business that I'm not dependent on brand deals, and so I get to say no unless I really like them, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, when was the last time you worked with a brand?
It's possibly almost a year ago now. We do have an ongoing partnership with Black Magic Design, which is a little bit of a different arrangement. They are wonderful to work with, but beyond them, I actually can't remember the last brand I worked with.
Interesting, and this is an example of a creator, and we'll see this more and more with creators who are moving to build out their own revenue lines, and they don't necessarily need brands anymore. We'll be talking more about that in our afternoon session, which I encourage you all to attend. Melissa, you run an agency, you work with a lot of different types of creators. How do you want to work with creators? What do you want to do as an agency to work better with creators?
So essentially, we're very collaborative with creators. I think it's really important to have a really good relationship with creators. And what we've learned is that creators come in all different sort of forms, and we have great relationships with even small creators as well. So I think there's a lot of value with brands looking at how they can tap into the creator economy. And so essentially, when we work with creators, we advise them, we also brief, and we make sure that it's a really great relationship so that they can do sort of the best work that they can do as well. Also that it's a really great output for the client and also the creator, and also payment. Like, you've got to make sure that payment is always done on time, and that's what we do with our creators as well. We make sure that it's a really great working relationship.
100% on payment, because typically a lot of ad agencies will say, oh, it's 45 days, it's 60 days, that's what we do. Creators don't work that way. Yeah. And what happens, as you guys know, but you guys I'm sure have seen, creators all talk. Yeah. And if they all find out that someone's not paying, then the next thing that happens is you all get outed on social media, which nobody really wants either.
And just to add on to that as well, like, we've had sort of situations where maybe a video needs to be revised quite a few times, and it's in our best interest to ensure that there's minimal revisions. But if that happens, we'll often even pay the creator some more money for their effort. And I think it's, there's no sort of one-size-fits-all model. I think you just need to sort of work with the creators and make sure that it's a really nice ecosystem.
Ming, you come from a creator, but now you're running an agency. How do you think about how you want to work with creators today?
So I came from a creator where I worked with many brands before. So from a creator point of view, when I work with brands at a point of time, I think brands, they're learning how to work with creators. So they're very used to working with like creative and ad agencies, give them a brief and make it look like their brand film or like their brand, like that fits their branding. But when they work with creator, they expect the creator to do the same from a creator point of view. When a creator is not a creative or ad agency, when we don't think like that at the start. When I was a creator at a point of time, until I had an agency now, which I can understand like both sides. So the thing is, when they engage the creator, they like what the creator is doing. But when they give the brief, they are trying to make the creator fit to a brief that is not like the creator. So end up, when a creator posts the content, it's a lose-lose situation because the brand doesn't have the reach they want, the creator doesn't get to grow the audience the way they want, and the content actually become less engaged. So what I would think is best is if the brand wants a certain piece of content, the creator can do it. And I think what they can do is they can take the content and put on their profile because that's the branding that they want. And so that would be better. That would be a win-win situation because now you get what you want and the creator doesn't need to post a content that is not relevant to them on their profile. So that is more of a creator point of view. Yeah, but now moving on to agency point of view, I can understand why brands need that because they have very strict guidelines, and working with creators, sometimes they may not know how to, if you give them too much open space, it might steer away from your branding. So I think the best way to move forward is to make sure you know what you want and you create a good brief and give it to them. So something that is more, something that still hits your brand guideline but gives them a bit more creative freedom. Yeah.
Sarah, what do you think?
I want to jump in on that too, because I think creative freedom is probably the biggest thing that brands need to be more aware of.
Yeah.
That when you give a creator the creative freedom in titling their video, in the thumbnail, and even how they present the segment, they know their audience, and there's a reason they have the growth that they have. So by a brand trying to take creative control or demand exclusive stuff or demand specific things, you're actually going to reduce the views on the video, which will reduce the conversion. So I think it is really important for brands to develop a connection so that they can trust the creators and give the creators that freedom to do what they know works.
Melissa, go ahead. Do you want?
Yeah, I just think it's a really interesting point, and I think of that as when you are working with a creator that's an influencer, so you want to get access to their audience, so I completely agree with that. But sort of on the flip side, we also work with smaller creators, and we actually take those videos and put it on the brand's profile. So for example, like with a university that we're working with, we work with creators in the university, so we need to make sure that there's more of an alignment with the brand guidelines as well, and everything's checked before it's posted.
And I think that's a really good point, is that in that particular case, the creators are pretty much, video producers for hire almost, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
So if you want more control, you can go that route and get creators to make things that still might feel authentic, but is not on their channel, so you don't have to worry about necessarily making sure that it is aligned with the creators' community. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big growing trend that I've seen as well is that a lot of companies, a lot of forward-thinking companies are working with creators who are within the company. So it's, staff or employees. So I think that's really nice to see. So a great example of this is Accor Hotels. Their whole TikTok profile is all about recruitment. So they're featuring staff in their company. So I think that's also really fascinating to see that space as well.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about, and you mentioned this a little bit about brands letting go or not letting go. Why does it seem so hard for brands to let their brand go for creators? Because creators want creative freedom because they don't want to mess with their communities, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think as soon as a creator follows too much of the brand guidelines and moves away from what they do, their audience sees them as a sellout, quite frankly. And even in a video, the audience will then just skip the segment, which actually doesn't work out well for the brand anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard a lot from creators who are turning down a lot of brand deals. It doesn't align because they say my community is more important than those brands.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know both of you guys want to say that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Actually, Ming, go ahead.
You go.
Oh, yeah, so I think one good creator that does it very well is like Mr. Beast. I think his content have high views. He doesn't really talk about the branding because he gives people a value. I think ultimately as a viewer, I don't want to be seeing advertisement. I want to swipe away.
Yeah.
You need to give the viewer a value, and the value you are giving to the creators is the content style you are creating. So it's okay to insert the branding message in, as long as you give the creator value. And I think most brands, when they want the video, is a full sponsored video. It's not you don't give any value to people other than please buy this product. Yeah.
Actually, just to jump on that, Mr. Beast just announced publicly that he's splitting from his agency because he wants to focus more on his own products.
Yeah.
So again, seeing that same thing.
Yeah, and I think the way that I look at it is that creators love to create, and so they can take your product or your service and they wrap it in a story, and that's where the magic happens. And also, just to add on to this, if you are creating a certain amount of videos per month, for example, for your social channels, you need to be thinking about what videos are designed for sort of awareness or consideration or sales. Not every video needs to be a hard sell. So I think that's really important as well when you're doing the strategy.
Yeah, I want to talk about two different things here. First off, I want to talk about the power relationship between brands and creators. 10, 15 years ago, when you were creating and, when I was running YouTube networks, the brands kind of were in the driver's seat. They had the money, the creators were kind of, they sort of had to do what the brand wanted. But I get a sense over the last few years that's changed. And now more creators like you are saying, I don't need brands anymore. Creators are saying, I'm only going to work with certain brands. Creators are saying, I want to do only in the ways that are authentic to my channel. Do you feel like that power dynamic has changed, and is that a good thing? Does anybody want to take that off first? Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, sure. I can hop in there. I think what we've found is that it's such a new space for larger organisations, and they're so used to traditional advertising. So for us, there's a little bit of education about what is short form video, what is sort of user generated content, and so forth. And then also working with creators. I mean, we want to make sure that we sort of protect the creators that we work with as well. So if there's like feedback on a video, we're very sort of diplomatic, or we really soften it and make sure that it's just a nice working relationship. But I think there is quite a bit of education sometimes when working with different companies as well, with what the style of content is all about.
I think too, for a long time, I know a lot of brands are hesitant to work with certain creators because they're attaching their reputation to the creator. The creator might do something random. That's actually now flipping as well, where people are calling out creators for working with brands they don't trust. And if a brand gets a bad rap in the media, people are piling on the creators that have supported those brands to say, you need to speak out against them. And I've seen that quite a few times in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Ming Wei, anything to add?
So I think to answer your question, I think the dynamic definitely has changed a bit. I think in the past, the brand used to have a lot more control, but now I think creators start to have more choice, but also there's also more creators going out there. So I think to brands, maybe they feel that if you don't want to do it, I can easily get much more creators to do it. So I think that might be one of the reasons why they still want people to follow their brief. But I think really it's a lot more about the education. I think brands, marketers themselves, they are not content creators. So I think they can't put them into the shoes of the content creator. So the way the content creator visualize the video and how the brands visualize the video, they are different. And I think that is...
I think too how you mentioned earlier about the difference between awareness and conversion campaigns. I know when I've worked with a few brands, they are very set on how many conversions they got out of a video, when in reality, my audience is probably seeing them for the first time. And just on the internet in general, people, like 80% of people don't buy on the first visit to a website, they buy on the second visit. So again, I think if you're talking about a YouTube strategy for a brand, it makes more sense to me to focus on more an awareness type campaign and reach a lot more creators, because then when people see your product elsewhere or when you do paid advertising, people associate it with the creator they know and trust, and they're in a buying state. Whereas when they're watching YouTube, they're not necessarily looking to shop, they're looking to be entertained. So it's better to focus on the awareness at that point and just get your brand aligned with creators that you think your ideal audience admires, so that then when you advertise in other points, you've created better touch points for them.
So you bring up a really good point. Creators sitting and doing stuff at the top of the marketing funnel, whereas brands wanting things at the bottom of the marketing funnel. Melissa, how does that jibe with the work that you do with brands?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, and I agree with what you've outlined. You know, the path to purchase can be really confusing, and I know that there's a lot of sort of tracking that you can do, but at the end of the day, you don't really know how someone sort of made that decision, right? And I often think of it like the social sniff. Like, people will have a look at the brand. Maybe they go to the website, then they'll go onto the social channels, maybe they read some comments. So you need to make sure that you're balancing out your content, whether that's sort of awareness, talking about things that are more sort of the top of funnel, maybe a little bit more salesy videos as well, but you just need to balance it out. So essentially, I think, you need to really be thinking about your content pillars or content buckets, but getting different texture in your content so that you're hitting or connecting with people at different parts of the path to purchase.
Yeah, what do you think? Go ahead, Ming, on the marketing funnel, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm talking, okay, I'm here, I want to add on to the funnel. So I think what you say is really right. I think most of the brands just want to go straight to conversion. But I think when I think of it as a funnel, the brand is really spending a lot of money to build this whole funnel. So they must be struggling to get new audiences. That's why they want to have a bigger upper funnel. So I think working with creators is a good way to increase the upper funnel. So hopefully through when someone watches a creator video, they Google it, they search it online. Then after that, the cookies and the ads, they will capture it, and then now you're part of the funnel. So I think working with creators is a good way to expand the upper funnel that will help you to get more lower funnel and not directly going to the lower funnel, unless the creator is in a very niche industry, like for example, a beauty product, and you get them to try a new viral product, and I think that can help if it's very niche, but most of the time, it's really just to assist in the upper funnel so you can get more lower funnel in the long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important for brands to know what their goal is with that. Also because that will determine how the integration will work. So I know with a lot of the brands I have worked with, and even creative friends of mine, brands want a 30-second or a 60-second spot in a video, and they want it in the first half of the video. If your focus is conversions, that's actually not ideal, because people are being interrupted from their entertainment. They're going to skip your ad. Whereas I know I have a few friends that are really pushing brands to say, let's put the ad at the end of the video, because now the person has finished watching the video and they're trying to work out what do they do next. Do they go to another video? Do they stick around and do something else? Or do they go and take the call to action because it's fresh in their mind at the end of the video? But I know from my own experience, a lot of brands are scared of this because they worry that with the retention on videos, people will abandon the video before getting to the ad. But again, this really depends on your type of campaign. If you're wanting more awareness, great, pop it at the start. If you're wanting conversions, it's very unlikely that someone is going to see your ad and abandon their favorite creator's video halfway to come and take action on what you're doing. And by the end, they may have forgotten it.
Well, and to your point, it's not just a 30-second spot. It is actually the creator doing something authentic for their audience and for the content that they're doing and weaving the brand in and getting there. So it's not the 30-second spot, right?
Yeah, I think integrations definitely work better, but integrations, again, rely a lot more trust in a brand, in a creator.
Yep. All right, I have another question, and I want to start with you, Sarah. Long-term versus short-term relationships. The only brand you work with today is one that you have a long-term relationship with, and you guys are partners, and you work together, and you trust each other. That would be Blackmagic. And it's not just because you're in the same city. It's because that's the way they like to work with creators, and I think it's very effective. How do you feel about the long-term versus the short-term? And then I want to hear from both of our agency folks about whether long-term partnerships with creators make sense for brands or not. So go ahead.
It's actually quite interesting with my connection with Blackmagic. Terry's a person I speak to, and when we first met him, he asked me outright, he said, do you want this to be a relational connection, or do you want this to be transactional? And he asked me straight off the bat, and I said, no, let's do relational. I love this. So we actually chat with him a lot on the phone. They supply us with every camera or every bit of equipment we ever need, which is amazing. And they ask for very little in return. We've actually never done a paid spot in a video for them, and they've actually flown me out here. The most they've ever asked for it in return was a PR spot. And yet, they brag about us as their case study, and we brag about them because they are such an incredibly generous company that we loved before we even started working with them. And so that connection for me means that when I go to events, or when anybody asks about the gear we use in our studio, I am proudly bragging about this brand. And whereas the brands that I've done deals with, it's so transactional that once the transaction is finished, I also kind of am done with that brand.
Melissa, transactional or relational? What do you think from a brand perspective?
Relationship is really important. So we work with creators and have longer term partnerships as well. I think it's about finding the synergy with the brand and also the creator, and it can turn into a beautiful relationship as well when the creator loves the product or service, just how you explained as well. So I think it's very much about relationships.
Short term or long term, what do you think?
I would think to put long term first. I think especially when working with creators, they need time to also understand the product, especially you know more about the brand than me, that I just know in just a briefing or so. So it needs to build an emotional connection between both the brand and the creator. So I think a brand should put the long term first. And if they have like ad hoc campaigns like 5-5-6-6 sale, you need more people to blast out, then those can be short term, but you should focus on a few long term creators, because if I want to know the latest promotion about a brand, I will think of this creator, I will go to your profile first. Yeah.
So I have a question. Ming, put your creator hat on, and Sarah, you always have your creator hat on. Do you think creators will take the time to learn products and really lean into it? I mean, and Melissa, you can answer it too, by the way. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, would you as a creator take the time to learn about a complex product for a brand? I mean, is there even time for that?
I think if it's the right product for your audience, because like as a creator, one of my biggest things is trying to figure out how I can serve my audience better. And so if there's a product, so as an example for me, I do a lot of videos in art. So I am looking for the best art supplies. And if a company like Derwent reaches out and says, we want to have a partnership, I would say yes, because I already know their products are really good. I'd be willing to try any new products they have, and I'm willing to talk to my audience about them. Whereas if they come and they're like, we want a video and here's a product, I tend to go, I don't know your product, I'm just not interested. So again, it comes down to that transactional thing, I think.
What do you think, Ming?
So for me, definitely, I have to understand the product to know how to put into my videos. If not, the audience, if you don't even understand the product, you can't expect the audience to also understand the product, and your audience might not even want to look at your other videos because you are just promoting for the sake of like short-term gains. So
Yeah, so make sure the dollars are enough worth it so they can spend the time to do it, right? Melissa, last word on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think there needs to be a really nice partnership, and they need to understand the product or the service. And as an agency owner, it's also in our role to make sure that we can help educate as well and be there to answer any questions.
All right, Melissa, Sarah, Mingwei, thank you very much.